and welcome to Glitter and Hello and welcome to Glitter and Chaos. We are your co-host, Caitlin Mead. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor and registered play therapist.
And I'm Kaylee Patton-Dieters. I am a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist. And today, our topic of focus, for the most part, hopefully, is going to be how to utilize coping skills when your environment is on fire. And that sounds like a lot. But I think we've done another podcast on coping skills, and we've kind of broken down different coping skills on what to do when things feel out of control, things are chaotic, things are swirling around you. But coping skills are good. We're never going to say, don't use your coping skills. That will never come out of our mouths other than what I just said. But it's not ever something we're going to endorse or suggest or encourage. We want coping skills. Coping skills are good. But what happens when you are flooded, and what happens when you are triggered, and what happens when the demands of the environment around you have become so intense that you forget all of your coping skills?
What happens when your environment's not supportive of you utilizing your coping skills? It's not conducive. It's not a friendly environment. And most environments probably aren't going to be friendly when you're needing to use your coping skills because you're having to use them for a reason.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
Like what Kaylee says, when you're in, the picture that pops in my head is you're in a loud environment. You are in a chaotic environment. You are in an environment that you cannot control, that you have very little control over, and you feel overwhelmed. And not just I'm overwhelmed, but the overwhelming overwhelmed. The
things are shutting down, brain goes static, everything is just overwhelming, overstimulating, not sure what to do. And quite frankly, you have a bunch of I don't know. All I can think of is a bunch of little things on fire running around in your brain.
I'm thinking of TJ Maxx on Christmas Eve. That sounds like my worst nightmare.
I've never been there, nor do I think I ever would put myself in that situation.
Sam's Club on Christmas Eve.
I'm good. I'm good.
Topeka.
Yeah, I can't. That's
on Christmas Eve or the first of the month.
I cannot. That would be way overstimulating for me. Ears ringing, just have a 1,000-yard stare of I am done and overstimulated.
Or the current TSA lines at the airports. I just experienced that.
There you go. So what do you do? What do you do when all of those things are happening and you are just overwhelmed? And like I said, it's good to know your coping skills. It's really good to know what they are, when to use them. I always talk about with my clients and for myself in general is put lists in high traffic areas. Thinking about your everyday life. Think about your flow. What does the flow of your day look like? And sometimes I'll even go through with my clients. Let's go through your day. What does your day look like? Where can we find little spots throughout the day where we can maybe insert something? And we've talked about making yourself 10% more comfortable. This is another skill that I use with that as well, is how can we utilize your environment to accommodate yourself, or how can you accommodate yourself in the environment, whichever way that needs to be. And so for me, what I have done as a way to accommodate myself in my environment is when I to-do lists work for me. They work well for my brain. They do not work well for everybody's brain. But for me, if I have a notepad, I have a notepad in the kitchen, I have a notepad in my office, and I have a notepad here in my office here at the building. And they do not move. Those notepads do not move from their home. That is where they live. But what I do is...
I just got a very evil thought in my mind of what I could do to Kaylee's notepad here at the office.
It'll be where did my notepad go?
I won't do that to her.
It'll be where did my notepad go?
Just where did her food go last night?
Yeah. I was like, what are you talking about? Oh, yeah. That quickly has left my brain. Also very on topic for that as well. So I have found that if I have the notepads in those very strategic areas, then I can write down things that I need to do in that area on that notepad. And that helps me keep organized. Now, that's not for everybody. But I share this personal example is when I talk about, especially with neurodivergent brains like ADHD brains, we already struggle with executive functioning. That's a part of the assessment with ADHD and sometimes autistic neurotypes as well, is learning how you function, but then also learning where your dysfunction lies with the executive processes. And this is where the research is divided to where there is no like hard and fast list of what executive functioning encompasses. There we go. But we have general outlines and broad strokes of what executive functioning looks like. And there are many different things that we can do. The one thing, and this is more of like an ADHD thing, is we'll just get a planner. I want to do very like not nice things to people who say, well, just get a planner, just use a calendar. And I'm like, I use a calendar, but it's on my phone. And that is the only calendar I will ever use. I have tried paper calendars. I get the pretty ones. I get the pretty pens. I get the stickers. I get it. All of it is a good dopamine rush because it's new and it's pretty. I will use it for a week and then it goes to the calendar graveyard. It's the same with notebooks. Oh, we'll just get a notebook to write stuff down in. I will get the notebook. I'll get a pretty one and I'll get one that I like. And it will go to the thousands of stacks of notebooks that I have throughout my life that I do not use. But that doesn't work for my brain. A lot of that will work for others. And so something that I got off track on, we'll get back on track on now, is creating what I call a crash pad. I call it a crash pad because this is an area that you create in high traffic areas of your life where it is one designated spot of where your coping strategies are. Because if they are not in front of you, you are not going to use them when everything is on fire.
Okay.
You know, everybody calls it different. I start with a crash pad.
I like that. So what do you do though? You're talking about high traffic areas. What do you do when you're in an area that's unfamiliar?
So that is the harder part. That's a good question though. Something that I encourage people to think about is, if possible, if we know that we're going into a situation or an engagement or a presentation or meeting that we know could be potentially overwhelming, let's plan for it. Let's bring like a fidget or having some gum or having some sort of comfort item on your person, in your, like in a pocket, in a purse, in a bag, in a jacket, hoodie, in something. And then that way you can at least have something that you can utilize for stemming and or grounding. That's not always possible because you walk through life and things happen. So in that moment, the biggest thing you can do is recognize that the flooding and the emotional part has taken over, and we have to either exit stage right to somewhere that is less stimulating, less overwhelming, less stressful, so then we can utilize our skills or have some sort of prompt to utilize the skills. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't have the environment that supports us using our coping skills, telling someone to use their coping skills when they do not have access to the frontal cortex because of how the brain is wired when it is triggered is like telling a fish to breathe outside of water. It's not going to go well.
Not helpful.
It's not going to go well.
Not helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Haley brings up a solid point. Like, preparation is key. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just talking like, you're talking about situations with, and not just ADHD. Mm-hmm. This isn't just for people who deal with ADHD or things like that. We're talking about everyday, like
anxiety, depression, stress.
I mean, anything, but anything. Like, even if you're not diagnosed with any of it. It's prepping. It's prepping your kids. Like my son has ADHD, but like even outside of that, it's knowing, okay, we're going to church and I need to have something for him during the worship part of it before he goes to kids' church. Because I know that asking my child to sit, now granted, like we stand a lot, but asking my child to do these things, that's difficult for him. Getting on 3 different airplanes and being in the air for 10 hours.
Hours at a time.
That we just did that. And I'm going to call this a mom win. I had activities, like several different activities in that bag for him that even if I had it broken down to like 2-hour time spans or whatever. Now, granted, we didn't need it for that because he had figured out what his preferred activities were and what worked for him. And he did phenomenal on the plane. But point being, like, preparation is key. But also given the caveat, sometimes you're going to walk into situations that you can't prepare for. Like, I mean, it's just, you can't prepare for every situation. No. So it's very important to always have those coping skills in the back of your mind, or with you at all times. Knowing that some coping skills aren't going to necessarily be appropriate given certain situations, or given you can't take a coping skill with you in public. You know,
it's also the intensity of the reaction too.
Right.
And I know you've done this, and this is something that I do with clients, is we create a scale and we come up with situations that would fall on, like, so let's just use an anxiety scale from like either 0 or 1 to 10. And we identify symptoms that would correlate with, like, okay, this is like a number 3 for me when I'm experiencing my anxiety. Okay, when we're feeling a 3, what is a list of coping strategies that would work at a 3? And then we keep going up the list and identifying symptoms and or situations that would potentially match the different levels and the different intensities of the anxiety feeling, and then matching coping strategies for that intensity. There are some coping skills that can fit across the board. And then there are some that cannot and do not. And it's identifying, depending on the level of the intensity that I'm experiencing, what can I do to help with that?
Right. And it's also recognizing, though, too, when do you need to remove yourself from the environment? So that was something Kaylee and I talked about before the podcast, too, because I asked her the question. She was like, well, what, when your environment's chaotic and you can't control it. And I said, okay, so like, what do we do in that situation? And some of it is having the appropriate coping skills for the environment, but also knowing, when do I need to leave the environment? Sometimes it's not always possible to leave the environment. Most of the time it is. You always, most of the time, like I should say always, most of the time, it's like oxymoron. Or contradicting myself. I don't know what I just said. Probably contradicting myself. But it is, most of the time you can remove yourself from the situation, or at least take a break. If you can't leave the situation entirely, if it's an engagement that you can't just be like, yo, peace out, I'm done. You can say, hey, I need to go get some air for 10 minutes and use a skill out there.
Or needing to go to a bathroom, or getting a drink of water. I mean, I call them artificial outs, where sometimes you have hit your limit, or you know that you're going to hit your limit, or you know that you're going into a situation that is going to be triggering and that is going to be overstimulating. You create an artificial out. It doesn't mean that it's completely fake, but it's something that you're manufacturing. So it's when you know that you have hit your social battery is like completely drained, and you're like, I don't want to maybe quite leave, or I can't because of whatever reason. But I can say, oh, I'm going to go get, a drink of water. And then you exit from that social situation. Or, hey, I got to go to the bathroom. Exiting social situation. It is just to give yourself enough reprise and enough time to be able to collect, do maybe a quick body scan and body check-in of like, what do I need? What's going on? Am I overwhelmed? Am I almost at a panic attack level? Like, it gives you that, I guess, excuse. I don't like using that either. That's why I like using artificial outs.
Micro breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Because the point is like, you want to be able to maintain. You don't want to reach panic attack level. No. Because then at that point you're then having to pick up the pieces, and then you're having to do more damage control. And so what we want to do is we want to avoid having to do the damage control. And you want to reach a point where you're able to have enough self-awareness to pick up on, hey, I'm not okay, or I'm getting to a point where I feel like I'm not going to be okay. And so I need to use these skills now. One of the things that Kaylee and I were talking about before the podcast is being in control of like what's in our immediate circle, what's in, like, what can we control? And ultimately at the end of the day, what you can only control is yourself. And if you're a parent, the tiny human that you have, or humans that you have, within reason, because sometimes they're real uncontrollable too. Speaking from personal experience. The point though, is that you have to recognize that your environment um, is a variable. It's a huge variable in whatever situation you're in. But you can ultimately decide, are these skills going, like, these skills will be helpful in this situation. Again, some of the skills you can't take with you. Like, there's certain places like I can't take fidgets with me, or fidgets aren't appropriate here, but my senses, like the senses, the grounding senses are helpful here. The deep breathing is helpful here, or taking my micro breaks is going to be helpful, or taking a comfort item which can fit in my pocket. Having those things. One of the things that I always carry is, especially for my son, is I always at least have like one sort of comfort item or something that I can fit in my purse. Super tiny. Just knowing that it's there. Because again, 9 times out of 10, you're going to walk into a situation that you're going to have little control over, but you can control how you react.
Yeah. And so I actually differ from you a little bit. So you were saying that, you can't always take like a fidget with you or have a stem, but you can. You can set that up for yourself. You can have that as an opportunity and as an option for you.
Fact.
Let's be real. It may not be what
the big fidget,
the big things that you need, but you can also use and you did say this as well, the sensory systems as well. So when I'm thinking about, like, if you're in a situation, okay, so let's say like you're queuing in a line and like you're getting groceries or something and you're waiting for the individual to like scan all your stuff. So at that point, depending on who you are, that can be an overstimulating situation for a lot of people. All of the lights, all of the sounds, all of the beeps, there's people talking, there's people moving around you. You want to make sure you want to get everything up on the conveyor so you're not forgetting anything in your cart. I mean, there's a lot of stimuli that's going on there. And at that moment, yeah, sometimes you can, either like some of us have fidget rings, some of us just fidget with our jewelry, some of us will rub our sweatshirts or our shirts, because that's another thing. Just swaying is another one. That's something that you can do that is definitely self-soothing for a lot of people.
Bilateral stimulation.
If not most people. Bilateral stimulation. So we talk about butterfly taps. I teach them quite frequently with a lot of different people. And there's always something that you can do in any sort of environment. I always talk about, and I think you do as well, you have to have certain coping skills that can be adapted to any sort of environment. And that is like the pinnacle, in my opinion, the best coping strategy that can be adapted to your environment and to the situation.
Absolutely. Because they can be ever changing. That's why we talk about the bilateral stimulation. Kaylee does bring up a point. You can fidget anywhere. I take back my statement. When I'm talking about fidgets, I'm talking about like the big Neo-Dough cubes. Like, those things you can't necessarily always take with you everywhere. But fidgeting with your sweatshirt, fidgeting with your pants, fidgeting with your fingers. One of the things that I'm often teaching is like the finger tapping. That's a very common one. It's one that I often do myself, is I will catch myself in situations when I'm feeling very anxious, just kind of tapping my fingers. Coping mechanisms, each coping skill can be adapted to what works for you. It's not a one size fits all. Never is, never has been. It's not just adaptable to you, but it's adaptable to the situation. And so you can make it work.
Yes.
In whatever situation that you're in.
But then how do you remind yourself to do it? That's where the crux of this whole discussion is how do you remind yourself to do it? Because again, we can identify all the different coping strategies that we have, that we know that we can do. When we are at a calmer state or a more regulated state, we can do them. But what do we do when we're at like the 8 through 10 on that scale?
So this goes back to our last podcast that we talked about, is that you're having to create a habit, but you're having to retrain your brain. You're having to create these things. One of the things that I talk to my clients a lot about is not just practicing these things when you're in a high stress situation, but practicing your skills when you are calm.
Yes.
That's when you're going to remember to use them in the high stress situations. When you're just sitting on your couch, when you're sitting in the car, doing them several times a day, just to do them, because then it gets your body and your brain in the habit of doing them.
Yes.
That's what I would say would be the reminder in those situations, is because then your body's going to kick it into that situation, which is, hey, we know how to do this.
Yes. And for the most part, that is going to work. And I think that maybe the reason that And maybe it's just more of a personal experience combined with I've read so much about ADHD and I have ADHD. And it's like, I can literally go into a situation, well, we've kind of talked about in a previous podcast, to where it's like, I don't control the remember. Even if I have done the thing multiple times, I don't always get to control the remember. And so it's like, what physical cue do I need in my environment if possible? It's not always possible, but if I know that I'm going to be in consistent environments where this may occur, how can I set that up and set up a reminder for that? And a lot of them is physical visual cues. And whether that is having different fidgets, different things, gum, a hard candy, um, a hair tie, something that's throughout, just looking and putting those in the environments that you're going to be at. Another thing that is talked about a lot in the ADHD realm is get a water bottle and put it there. That's its home. It does not move. It is your work water bottle. It does not go home. You wash it there. It stays.
You have that on your desk.
I do. I do have a work water bottle, but I have
Good
water.
idea. I should have one here.
But that's so that goes into like the hyposensitivity to interoceptive cues and not knowing when I'm thirsty and things like that, until I'm like, oh my God, I have to drink water. Anyway, so I'm trying to drink more water with that. But again, I am setting up my environment to where that is there and it reminds me. It's the same thing with coping strategies. On my little desk that I have some fidgets that I use every once in a great while. Honestly, right now, the biggest ones I'm using are my rings, to fidget and to do some things like that. But it's having those physical cues. And I know that sometimes it sounds silly, but sticky notes are your friend.
Oh, yeah.
Putting a sticky note in different areas to remind you to do things is a good thing. It is taking the load off of your working memory in the executive functioning in the frontal cortex, so you don't have to continue to try to remember what I need to do. And that took a long time for me to be okay with. Like, so for example, I utilize the reminders in my phone for all sorts of different things. I have a reminder for noon today to do something. One that, because the morning has just been a morning, there's been some chaos, and I know I'm going to forget if I don't have that in there. It's not because I don't want to, because it's important to me, but it's just how my brain works. And I have come to understand that I am accommodating myself to help keep me more organized. And I've had some people say, like, you have to set a reminder for that. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I just
Well,
own
it's
it.
what works for you.
Yeah.
And it's what you need to do. And, as Kaylee's been talking, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, gosh, like these physical reminders would be great. Like, it would be great in my purse to have like a little cosmetic bag or whatever full of those little reminders. And that's just that bag. That bag stays there. That bag is full of mints. That bag is full of a fidget for my son. That bag is full of maybe a fidget for myself. That bag is full of, whatever, like maybe a little note that says, hey, take a deep breath, or like, it stays there. It's consistent there. It's those little, and I've never thought of doing that before, but as she's talking about it, it's just like, that would be a great reminder, because that thing goes with me pretty much everywhere. But it would be such an easy thing to do, to just have in those situations. That's just like, hey, this is what we do.
And it has to work for you. It doesn't have to work for anybody else. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. And for the love that is all that is holy, do not, if possible, do not allow the shame that others will try to put on you to invade what you need. Because that is something that I personally, that has been part of my journey, is to unlearn some of that shame that I need these supports to do certain things in my life. It's not harming anybody else. It's not doing anything.
Helping you.
It's helping me. And just because I need a reminder for certain things to do to make sure that I can do things that are important in my life, that is of no consequence to anybody else. And the shame that people put on me is, I'm done.
I'm just going to say shame on them for putting shame on you.
But that's kind of how society has been.
It is. And this is where I could go down a whole different podcast about what my thoughts are on that. And maybe we will do another podcast on that. Buckle up, buttercups. Y'all better be prepared. Just saying. I get a little sassy, a little fiery about that.
We both do.
But what works for you doesn't have to work for everybody else. Because guess what? It's not for them. It's for you. And they don't get to judge you. They don't get to dictate what you do and what you don't do. And if they want to shame you, well, kick rocks. Don't care.
I tell my clients a lot of times, do make the environment comfortable for you and what that looks like. It doesn't mean that it has to make sense to anybody else, but if it works well with you and your family and your partner and your pet and your family, whomever is in your immediate environment, it has to work for you guys. And that is, especially when everything is on fire, if you have already like pre-accommodated yourself, then you're going to be able to utilize your skills more freely because there is that reminder. You have already done the work ahead of time to say, life happens. Life is chaotic. We don't always get to control what's going on. But if I can do this little thing ahead of time for me, for my family, to potentially not get to an 8, maybe we stay at a 6 on that scale, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. But it is hard when everything is going on and you're overstimulated and you're stressed and you're going from A to Z to B all the way to, double A. I don't know. But it's, I mean, that's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. If you think about your day.
Just making up another alphabet over here.
No, because when you go through A through Z, then you go to double A, double B, double C. That's the line. That's the thing.
Okay. Sure. I just start over. But okay.
But then you have duplicate A's. So which A are you talking about?
I don't know, but you're overwhelming me. I need to pull my coping skill bag out. But the point that we're making is that you're going to do what works for you. And it's all adaptable and it's doable. Even if your environment's not conducive to it, you can adapt to your environment. And that your skills can adapt to your environment. And you can take those breaks if you need to. And if you have the option to leave the environment, leave the environment. And anybody who's got a problem with it, like I said, can kick rocks.
You're doing what is best for you in the moment.
Right. Because at the end of the day, your health, mental and physical, is what's the most important. And I think sometimes we tend to forget that when we are so focused on pleasing people around us, whether that's family, whether that's friends, whoever it is. Because society, our families, all of those things, even if it's unknowingly, put pressure on us to be specific people with specific expectations. And honestly, life is way too short to be living for everybody else.
And sometimes it takes a long time to unlearn that. But that's why we're having this conversation. Is so we can start to unlearn things and help us. Help you to help us. All of it.
I mean, really and honestly, when we're having these conversations with you, we're having it with ourselves too. We're teaching you to unlearn stuff that we have to unlearn too. So when I'm telling people on the camera to kick rocks,
sometimes we have to take our own advice.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not fun.
I've had that backfire a few times.
Yeah. I've had my own mother watch this and she's like, you got a little sassy. And I'm like, yeah, well, I was talking to myself too. So
I've had it backfire in sessions a few times.
Oh yeah.
I'll do something in there and a client will be like, well, don't you tell me not to do that? And I went,
oh, I've had a few sessions where clients are like pot calling kettle black. And I'm like, this isn't about me. It's about you. And they're like, yeah, I don't think so. So, I mean, it's great when you have that rapport with people.
It is.
But
no, it really is. I mean, I don't know if we've ever really talked about the therapeutic alliance, but I mean, but that is a really big piece of therapy. That's when you've found a therapist, is when you feel comfortable to sometimes call them out. We are not perfect humans. We make mistakes. And so that is part of a healthy relationship, is be like, whoa, wait a minute. Wait.
Being personable enough within reason. But when you have a relationship with your client and your therapist where your client can be like, back to train up. So I've had a few who are like, hey, Caitlin, back that up a second. But it also reminds you that we really love what we do. So
we get to do this, and this is really cool.
It's a pretty fantastic and rewarding job. And I don't know that I'd even call it a job, because honestly,
I just keep going back to I get to do this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I get to do this and I enjoy doing this, and I can honestly say I don't regret making the choice to do this.
Yep.
So thanks for joining us today. We ended on a different note, but
Chaos.
and just life. And we hope you guys have a fantastic Friday and a fantastic weekend, and use those skills. Ask us questions. Tell us what your skills are. Be real, be authentic, be chaotic. Enjoy some glitter. Enjoy the Kansas weather because it's chaotic.
It's been all over the place.
So
Been all over the place.
we hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
See ya.
Bye.